Hi, Märt. You were the co-writer of the report about the inclusive EdTech ecosystem for the 21st century, where you described a way to enable access to high-quality education to everyone globally through reorganizing the EdTech ecosystem. But before we talk about this report, I would like to ask you to introduce yourself and your professional background.
Hello, everyone. It's really an honor to speak with you here, and I hope you have had a really good start of the year. I've been working on various education projects and like NGOs and companies for the past 17 years. So we've set up quite a few, I think 4 companies and 5 NGOs by now in this field.
And now you are a chairman of the board of the Nordic EdTech Forum as well.
The Nordic EdTech Forum is an association of innovators in education in the Northern Europe, 8 countries. So all small countries here. So it kind of makes sense to try to join the forces together between the countries. And so it's really practical as well, because often if you go to details, there is only 1 or 2 people in one country that are experts in a certain area. So if you mix the countries together, then you actually have a decent pool of people to exchange ideas with.
Could you give us a brief overview of the report about the inclusive EdTech ecosystem for the 21st century?
2 major principles that need to be followed to have this growth of great solutions in education development. And first principle is scalability. So it's okay to start solving a challenge of education in, let's say, a school somewhere in rural Ghana. It's totally fine. But what we need to keep in mind when we solve this challenge is straight away that, hey, maybe the school in the neighboring village also needs the same solution because they have the same challenge. Maybe there are, I don't know, thousands or hundreds of thousands of schools across the globe that actually have more or less exactly the same challenge, and they could benefit from our solutions. And the second principle is sustainability. And this means that on the very basic level, that the team that is building the solution to the challenge in education would be foreseeing that they would make enough income with this solution that they would be able to pay fair salaries to the team members that they need to maintain or further develop or research the solution that they want to build or that they are working on already. If we don't have this perspective, this sustainability in place, what happens is that as soon as the enthusiasm runs out, people understand that, hey, I need to actually make sure that my family has food on the table. Unfortunately, all of us need to pay bills. Then very often the really great ideas collapse, and we see a kind of graveyard of left behind educational projects.
Do you have any technology in mind which could help improving the digital ecosystem?
So one of the challenges for the learners today, it doesn't matter if they are young or grown-up adult learners, is to prove that some kind of learning happened if there was no formal setting. So let's say that you're just commuting to work. It takes you an hour a day, and you are doing micro-learning on your phone, just learning about whatever. I mean, let's say you are interested in underwater welding, just randomly. Then if you would do like a course at the university, it would be quite easy to prove that you've done it. But if you just do it on your phone on your way to work, it's a bit tricky. So there is a need for, let's say, a system that would collect all of this micro-learning or other kind of learning that you have done on your free time and collect it into a nice digital diploma. That could be run on blockchain, of course. I'm really, we already see a few of these kind of diplomas coming up in various parts of the world. And now the question is, how can we help the existing, let's say, status quo to embrace this kind of innovation? Of course, the universities that would take the lead in taking this kind of things on board would benefit the most of this, because there is so many things that the people want to learn outside of the universities, and let's say the universities would be able to kind of manage their work better, or get a lot more learners through validating the learning that has been happening. For example, I mean, there is quite a few different opportunities out there for existing, let's say, ecosystem parties. Another big topic, what you mentioned, is of course the AI or machine learning. So if we want to develop education, then one of the things that we notice very often is personalization of education. And primarily here, I'm starting to talk about adaptive learning. And what this means is that, let's say, if you take the flow theory of education, then it says that people are developing the best and feeling them the best when they are about 85% of the time correct in their thinking. So now, if you're 100% of the time correct in your thinking, you know what's happening, you're becoming bored very quickly. I mean, everybody of us has these colleagues that have been working on one job for 5 years or more, and they're once in a while kind of coming to us and saying, hey, there is no more challenges for me in the work. I would like to do something else, or I'd like to be challenged. And that's totally normal. And it has to be happening like that. And the other, let's say, side of the curve is that if you're more than 20% wrong in your thinking, what happens is that we also become demotivated, because we feel that, hey, this is not really for me. It's too hard. I can't get this. So, and the sweet spot based on the flow theory is at about 85%. And the reason behind it is very simple. The challenges that we have to overcome when we're learning something are hard enough that we feel that, yes, I got this. Like, you get this feeling of flow. And this is what everybody wants and likes, actually. And in what happens in our brain based on neurosciences now is that we get an injection of dopamine as well as a reward of achieving a challenge. So if you look at the human beings, we are like Mother Nature has designed us to be the perfect learning machines. So we just need to like enable this kind of things to happen. And now this brings us back to the topic of personalization and that adaptization of learning. So we want the learner to stay in the corridor, which is quite narrow, where they have the right type of challenges, or right, let's say, weight of challenges. And when they have this success experiences that are coming after each other in a certain time frame, then they develop the fastest based on the flow theory. And there is actually an Icelandic doctor of education who has invented a mathematics learning game for 4 to 8-year-old kids using this knowledge. And what they pointed out was that the kids learn up to 12 times faster the basic mathematics compared to curriculum-based learning, and of course without any stress. So for the children. So this is kind of giving a little bit of insight what kind of superpower the technology could have. And now if you bring the AI to the picture, or machine learning, then we have probably millions of different methodologies and ways of learning different things across the world. Some of them are really bad. I mean, we are still using them, but actually they don't work. They don't provide any value. The kids learn, like, use the methodology, but actually they forget almost instantly what they learned about. So honestly speaking, it's a useless waste of time and resources. Very, like, usually it is for both sides. I mean, if it's happening in a classroom, it's a waste of time for the teachers and for the learners. So the kids would be better off just playing outside. I mean, they would develop faster, and they would develop their personal boundaries, life skills, team building skills, whatever, if they just play without organization. So there is a lot of really good research coming on this actually from the US lately. But now, if we would be able to collect high quality information about the various ways of people working on learning something, and this is actually Estonian government is working on this as we speak. They have set up a system to collect learning, how to call it in English, like footsteps of learning, and to systemize them in a big data setting. So, because if you want to use machine learning in a useful way, you need high quality data first. And now they are preparing also to start using machine learning algorithms to recognize certain tools or methodologies that are used by certain cohorts of learners. And then on top of this, you can build a digital learning body or a digital learning assistant. And the point there is that firstly, you recognize which kind of learning is actually meaningful, that has results. And then you can start looking at which groups of learners benefit of this kind of learning. And then you can connect them together thanks to the AI. So I think everybody would be totally happy to have this kind of digital learning body. And it can be just as useful to teachers as it is to learners directly, because if you have a digital learning assistant that helps you to understand better what kind of kids you have in your classroom, what kind of methodologies are probably the most suitable, and would give you a list of, let's say, top 10 and start and number it based on the preciseness or likelihood of being viable for this group of learners, then trust me, all teachers would be, all reasonable teachers would be very thankful, because their work would become much easier. If the teacher just needs to know what kind of learning goals this classroom has at the moment. If we go into details, it's really dangerous to start talking about educational development with me, because the discussion can get very long and maybe even boring for people that are not so passionate about education. But as you can see, it's pretty exciting stuff. And my kind of bet is that in average, on a global scale, we could achieve up to 10 times better education, better learning, compared to what it is at the moment on an individual level of learners. And it's really easy to imagine this when you think that there are still classrooms in the world where there is 70 kids in one classroom and only one teacher. So so the challenges of education are plenty, and of course for the innovators, it's thanks to this, it's even more fun to work in this field, because it's easy to achieve. It's easy to achieve somehow better results, or in some ways better results. But trust me, in medicine sector, it's the same situation. There is so many things that could be improved with the same kind of innovation approaches, and the same questions of how can we get the best ideas to flourish. And in reality, we don't know what is the best idea before we tried it out and are able to do cohort analysis. Just to put a fun fact on the table again, Amazon as a company is doing 70 to 80,000 experiments a day to see how to develop their services, or how to improve somehow the customer experience, or there are so many things that you can experiment. In education and medicine sectors, we don't have even the infrastructure. There is no even, on an international scale, there is no even a dialogue to have such an infrastructure in place to enable such a massive amount of experimentation to find better ways of providing public services to everybody. And if we go like one step further, then one of the big issues is that the innovators just don't have the possibility even to be included in the dialogue. So, and there is, of course, one thing that is mentioned in the vision document as well, is that we need to have a microservices-based architecture. So people, I mean, as small teams as I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 5 people teams would be also welcomed with their solutions. And if they find the target audiences that benefit from their solutions, they could scale their teams and their solutions further. Today, if you look at how public sector and let's say public service development is done, very often it's a playground for only the let's say the mammoth corporations. So the small ones are having no way even behind the table. And this is one of the reasons why we have this lack of innovation happening in this field.
Thank you, Märt, for the interview and the really interesting inputs.